Hello everyone, myself Vinay Kumar. I am pursuing PhD in physics. In this YouTube channel, I will be teaching physics, chemistry and mathematics starting from 8th standard till 12th standard. Please do subscribe to my channel if you want to learn physics, chemistry and mathematics. In my last video, I was actually explaining the 9th chapter of 8th standard science subject. In this video, I will be explaining the 10th chapter of same 8th standard science subject, that is sound. You might be listening through your mobile speaker what I am speaking. That means you are actually hearing the sound. The sound which I am producing is actually getting recorded in this device and that has got uploaded on YouTube and then you are listening to that. That means some kind of vibration is happening in your phone to generate the sound. So only when that particular vibrations happen, you can hear a particular sound. You might have seen a lot of musical instruments which produce various kinds of sounds. That is because every musical instrument will be given a necessary amount of vibration to it so that when you hit that particular musical instrument in a certain way, they will produce a vibration in a certain way. So at that particular time, you can actually hear the sound from that particular musical instrument. To understand the vibration of an object to produce sound, you can actually perform an experiment at your home. You can hang a steel plate or a steel cup or any steel item to the ceiling. If you hit this steel cup or steel plate with a steel spoon, then you can produce some sound waves. So after hitting this steel plate with a steel spoon, you just touch this steel plate. This steel plate will be vibrating at its mean position. That means you can feel the vibration of that particular steel object. By this experiment, you can understand that vibration of an object is actually producing the sound. That means that particular steel plate is actually producing sound and you are hearing the sound which has been produced by that steel plate. That is because the vibration of that particular steel plate is producing the sound waves, and when you touch that steel plate, when you hit that steel plate with a steel spoon, then you can feel the vibration in your hands. So by this experiment, you can feel the vibration, like how vibrations are responsible for sound to emerge. So whenever an object moves back and forth by its mean position, so we call this as back and forth motion. That is, if this is an object and this object vibrates at its mean position, the position at which it was lying is actually the mean position of that particular object. And if that object actually vibrates to and fro or back and forth in its mean position, that kind of to and fro motion is actually known as vibrations. So you can call that as back and forth motion, or you can also call it as to and fro motion. So this to and fro motion of any object actually generates vibrations, and only when vibrations are generated, the sound is heard. If you have a PU lab in your school, then you can go to that lab and you can ask the lab attender to give you a tuning fork. If you actually hit this tuning fork to a surface, actually this tuning fork vibrates in its mean position. So while it is vibrating in its mean position, if you put this tuning fork into a water, so if you take a container and if you place water in this particular container, and if you hit this tuning fork and if you place this tuning fork in this fashion inside this water, then when this tuning fork touches the water surface, then you can clearly see the waves are generated in the water. That shows the sound which is produced by this tuning fork is actually in the form of wave. So this particular wave is actually known as sound wave. To understand this sound wave, you can perform this experiment and you can see those waves when you keep this tuning fork inside a water. Even you might have seen some guitar players playing guitar. So you might have seen the instrument guitar. There will be particular strings which is tied in this particular guitar. So only when that musician, when he actually gives certain vibration for this string, this particular guitar will produce various kind of sound, and that various kind of sound will be very melodious to hear only when he strikes that string in a particular way. Even you might have seen another kind of musical instrument which is known as tabla, which has some stretched membrane over it. So only when a musician hits on this particular stretched membrane, this membrane actually vibrates in its mean position. to and fro motion of that particular object will actually create vibrations, and that vibrations is actually heard as sound. So this tabla produces different kind of sound, and this guitar produces different kind of sound, because vibration which this particular string produces are different, and the vibration which this stretched membrane produce is different. So now you might be thinking that we human beings speak with each other. We actually talk with each other. So we are actually producing sound from our voice box, which is there in this particular throat. So if you hold this part of the throat, you can actually feel the vibration. So whenever you are talking to your friends or whenever you are talking to others, you can keep your hand here, and once you can observe that your voice box will be vibrating in your throat, only then the sound from your mouth comes out. That means the air which is already there inside your lungs, when you breathe that air out, at that particular time you give certain vibrations to that air, and that air actually carries the sound which is produced by your voice box. So this particular voice box is also known as larynx. So here also you can observe that vibration of a particular object is actually producing sound. So in human beings, actually vibration of the voice box which is there in the throat of human beings is actually producing sounds. Based on different kind of vibrations, we are producing different kind of sounds through our mouth. Now we have discussed a lot of things about sound. Now I have also given so many examples for sound. Now you might be worrying, where is the medium for sound to travel? Because always sound needs some medium to travel from one place to other place. So if you are speaking from here, like let's suppose say you are standing here and your friend is standing at a distance, and you are speaking from this particular place, but still your friend can hear what you are speaking. Why? Because the air medium, the air which is there in this particular environment will actually carry the sound waves till the person whom you are speaking with. That means sound is actually propagating through air. When you talk in a non-soundproof room, the other person who is standing outside the room also can hear your voice. Why? Because your room is a non-soundproof, and air can easily pass through so many minute places where it can actually carry sound outside the room, and hence people outside the room also can hear your voice. That shows air is actually playing a very major role for sound to propagate from one place to other place. So now if you want to understand why air is actually important for sound to propagate from one place to another place, you can perform one experiment. You can place a mobile outside in an open environment, and you can actually put some ringtone in this mobile phone. So you can hear a certain decibel of sound from this mobile. So if you enclose this mobile with a glass cup, and if you seal this glass cup, and then if you play some ringtone inside mobile, then you can observe there is reduction of sound which is coming from this mobile. So when this mobile was kept outside, the sound which was coming from this mobile was higher. So when this mobile was kept inside the glass plate, the sound coming from this mobile is in same amount, but still it is enclosed inside a glass cup. Hence the sound cannot propagate properly because the air inside the glass cup is actually sealed. So the sound waves get trapped. So many sound waves get trapped inside that glass cup. So you cannot hear that much sound which you are hearing when mobile was kept outside the glass cup. So this experiment also proves that air is actually very much important for sound to get traveled from one place to the other place. So let us imagine we are actually trapped in a vacuum room, and still we can survive in that particular vacuum room. Just we can imagine this kind of situation. And if I speak something in that particular vacuum room, then you cannot hear what I am speaking. Why? Because there is no air medium at all. So there have been lot of scientific experiments done on this, where sound inside vacuum cannot travel, because when you actually create vacuum, there will be no air molecules present in that particular place. That means all air molecules, gas molecules, water molecules, whatever is there in this atmosphere is actually removed, and that kind of place is known as vacuum. So in that vacuum, sound cannot propagate. because sound has no medium to propagate at all. Hence, if there is vacuum, then sound cannot be heard. So now you might have doubt that even sound can travel in liquids or what? Yes, actually sound can even travel in liquids. To understand this, you can actually do an experiment. You can place a bucket on floor and you can fill this bucket with water. You can take a bell which is of this shape and you can actually put this bell inside this particular water. You can actually start ringing that bell and you can still hear the sound which is generated from this bell which is kept inside this water. That shows even the sound which is produced by this bell is actually traveling through this water medium and it is reaching your ear. That means sound can also travel in liquid mediums, sound can also travel in air medium as well, and even sound can travel through solid medium also. So you might have played some games in your childhood by tying a thread to two cups. So if one cup is there at a distance and if one person slowly speaks through this particular cup, then the other person who is actually hearing through this cup will actually hear what this person is telling. That shows this particular thread is actually carrying the sound waves which is produced by this person. That shows sound can also travel through the solid objects as well. So conclusion for all this discussion is that sound can actually propagate through solids, sound can also propagate through liquids, and sound can also propagate through air medium. But one condition is that sound always requires some medium to propagate. If there is no medium present, then sound cannot travel from one place to other place. So now we have talked a lot about sound, but we are actually hearing the sound. Which is the organ which is responsible for hearing a sound in human beings is ear of human beings, because a ear of a human being is shaped in such a way that all sound vibration will fall on this human ears, and that vibration will actually travel through the ear canal and it will actually hit the eardrum which is present here. This is known as eardrum. This eardrum actually receives the vibrations from the surrounding, and that vibrations is actually converted into electrical signals and sent to brain, and that brain actually recognizes what is the sound which is being played. This shows that eardrum of a human being is very important for hearing the sound. In textbook you can refer for the diagram of ear, where they have beautifully drawn an ear and they have explained the different parts of ear. As I told, when an object has to and fro motion in its mean position, it actually generates vibrations, and that vibrations are actually responsible for sound to occur. So the amount of vibrations, like if you consider one to and fro motion as one particular vibration, then how many vibrations happen in 1 second is actually known as frequency of that particular sound. So if an object is actually vibrating 20 times in 1 second, then 20 number of vibrations divided by 1 second will be 20 hertz frequency. Actually this hertz is the SI unit for frequency. So if someone tells you 20 hertz frequency is there in a particular sound, that means an object is vibrating 20 times in its mean position in 1 second. So if an object vibrates 100 times in its mean position in 1 second, then the frequency of this particular vibration will be 100 hertz. So the frequency of this particular sound will be 100 hertz. So whenever number of vibrations which is happening in 1 second will actually decide how much frequency that particular sound has. So here one important technical term which you have to remember is frequency. So now certain sounds will be having higher frequency but lesser loudness, but certain kind of sounds will be having higher loudness but lesser frequency. So this is actually known as pitch and loudness. So whenever an object has high frequency sound, then that particular object is actually having higher pitch. So whenever frequency is less but loudness is more, then the amplitude of that particular sound is greater. So amplitude actually accounts for the loudness of the sound and frequency actually accounts for the pitch of the sound. So that's why certain smaller sounds will actually irritate us. So you might have observed in classrooms when teacher writes on board, if certain amount of angle is not maintained with the chalk and the board, a certain kind of noisy sound will come from that board. That is because that particular sound has higher frequency. Loudness is actually very less, amplitude of that particular sound is very less, but frequency of that particular sound is very high. So hence listening to such kind of sounds will actually irritate us, and it is not good for our ears also. You might have observed male voice have certain kind of loudness and female voice have certain kind of pitch in their voice. That is because female voice has higher frequency and male voice has lesser frequency but greater amplitude. Male voice actually have higher amplitude and female voice actually have higher frequency. Hence female voice will have higher pitch and male voice will be having loudness in their voice, because amplitude of male voice is more and frequency of female voice is more. So this pitch can also be known as shrillness. So shrillness and pitch are one and the same. So this pitch or shrillness is actually accounted by the frequency. Coming to one more point, all kinds of sound cannot be heard by this human ear, because human ear can only hear sound which has 20 hertz frequency till 20 kilohertz frequency. So kilo refers to 1000, because 1 kilo is 1000. So 20 kilo is actually 20,000. That means 20 hertz till 20,000 hertz a human ear can hear. So only sound which is lying in between 20 hertz and 20,000 hertz frequency, only such kind of sounds can be heard by human ear. The range of listening to a particular sound is actually measured through the frequency of that particular sound waves. So it should be in between 20 hertz and 20,000 hertz. That means the vibration of that particular sound should be 20 times per second or 20,000 times per second or in between that. Now coming to the harshness of sound, if sound is very much harsh to hear, then such kind of sound we actually call it as noise. And certain sounds which are actually melodious to hear, so which are actually melodious to hear, only such kind of sound we call it as music. That means certain kind of sound will be noise and certain kind of sound will be music. That happens only when there is regular and irregular vibrations happening from a particular object. So when there is an irregular vibration taking place and that irregular vibration is actually producing sound, then such kind of sound will account for noise. And only when there is regular vibration actually generated from a particular musical instrument, then only we can actually hear a melodious music. So a person who doesn't have any kind of music knowledge, if he plays a musical instruments, then the vibration which it generates using that musical instruments will not be melodious, because he actually generates irregular vibrations because of lack of music knowledge. But a person with a proper music knowledge, when he actually plays a particular musical instrument, he can actually produce a regular vibrations through that musical instruments. Hence that kind of vibrations will produce a melodious sound. A person with lack of music knowledge, if he plays a particular musical instrument, then that will be a noise. In these days we can see that there is lot of noise pollution happening in our world. That is because of increased population, increased automobile usages, increased factories and increased various other materialistic comfort which we are desiring every now and then. Because of this, there is lot of noise pollution which is happening in this world. So we should actually try to avoid the noise pollution so that it can benefit for our environment. Because of this noise pollution, there is lot of adverse effects happening on human health. People with high blood pressure, people with hypertension, people with heart problems will actually face a lot of problem by this noise pollution. Even small birds which are living in this particular world will also get affected by this noise pollution. Even you might have seen small birds disappearing from this particular cities. Why? Because these birds cannot listen a particular frequency sounds, so they will actually get extinct over a period of time if we are making more and more noise pollution in our world. So to maintain an ecological balance, these kind of birds are very much important, but these kind of birds are actually vanishing from our world. Why? Because we are actually creating a noise pollution in our world. So it is our responsibility to reduce the noise pollution, and it is our responsibility to protect this environment. So to reduce the noise pollution, we should actually install silencing machine in every kind of automobiles, like aircrafts, cars, bikes, heavy trucks, whatever vehicles we are using. We should actually use silencers or silencing machine so that we can actually reduce the noise pollution from that particular vehicles. So even if we can take so many other measures where we can actually reduce noise pollution, then we can actually take such measures. So you should think what and all measures you should actually take to reduce the noise pollution. So this is all there in this particular video. I have explained you what is sound, and I have also explained various terminologies which is there in this particular sound chapter. Like this, I will be discussing physics, chemistry and mathematics starting from 8th standard till 12th standard in this YouTube channel. So if you want to learn physics, chemistry and mathematics, then please subscribe to my channel and stay tuned with my channel. Thank you.